If your boyfriend gets upset when you're around other guys, it's not just insecurity or possessiveness, it's a nervous system response rooted in attachment patterns, evolutionary psychology, and threat perception. Understanding what's actually happening in his brain can change how you navigate this completely. Before we dive deep into the psychology behind this, if you're watching from somewhere in the world right now, drop a comment telling me where you're from. I love seeing our global community. And if this kind of content helps you understand relationships better, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're about to break down the neuroscience of jealousy in a way you've never heard before. When your boyfriend sees you interacting with another guy, his amygdala activates before conscious thought even happens. This is the brain's threat detection system. It processes social cues in milliseconds, scanning for signs of potential loss or betrayal. His reaction isn't calculated, it's automatic. From an evolutionary standpoint, mate-guarding behavior has deep roots. For thousands of years, proximity to reproductive competitors triggered stress responses in males. The brain hasn't evolved as fast as society has, so even in modern contexts where you're just talking to a coworker or a friend, his nervous system might interpret it as a threat to the relationship bond. Psychologically, this response intensifies based on his attachment style. If he has anxious attachment, his nervous system is hyper-vigilant to abandonment cues. Every interaction you have with another man gets filtered through a lens of potential loss. His brain asks, is she comparing me to him? Am I enough? Is she going to leave? The cortisol spike that happens during these moments is real. It's the same stress hormone released during actual danger. So when he gets upset, it's not manipulation or control. His body is genuinely experiencing a threat response, even if logically he knows you're not doing anything wrong. Here's the part most people miss. The intensity of his reaction often correlates with how much he values you. The more emotionally invested someone is, the more their nervous system perceives loss as catastrophic. It's not romantic, but it's biological. High investment equals high stakes. Behaviorally, you'll notice patterns. He might get quieter when you mention a male friend. He might ask seemingly casual questions about who you were with. He might position himself physically closer to you in group settings with other men. These aren't conscious strategies, they're nervous system-driven protective behaviors. From a neurological perspective, when he perceives you connecting with another guy, his brain releases less oxytocin and more cortisol. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone that makes him feel secure with you. When it drops, anxiety fills the gap. The emotional regulation center in his prefrontal cortex gets overridden by the limbic system's alarm bells.
Socially, men are conditioned to suppress these feelings, so when the upset surfaces, it often comes out sideways, maybe as irritability, withdrawal, or picking fights about unrelated things. He can't always articulate that he felt threatened, so the emotion leaks out in indirect ways. This is emotional dysregulation, masked as other conflicts. According to psychology, the guys who react most strongly often have histories where their emotional needs weren't met consistently. Maybe past relationships where they were betrayed or replaced. Maybe childhood experiences where love felt conditional or unpredictable. The current situation triggers old wounds, amplifying the present moment reaction. The jealousy response also links to self-worth. If he struggles with feeling adequate or valuable, other men become mirrors of his perceived inadequacy. When you laugh at another guy's joke, his brain doesn't hear the joke. It hears evidence that he's not funny enough. When you have an engaging conversation with someone else, it confirms his fear that he's not interesting enough. Here's what's actually happening in real time. You're having a normal interaction with a guy. Your boyfriend's ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which processes social evaluation, starts comparing himself to that person. Am I taller, smarter, funnier, more successful? This comparison happens unconsciously and rapidly. Simultaneously, his anterior cingulate cortex, the part that detects social pain, lights up. Studies show that social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. So when he perceives you giving attention to another man, his brain experiences it similarly to being physically hurt. This isn't exaggeration, it's neuroscience. The testosterone factor plays a role too. Higher testosterone correlates with increased mate-guarding behavior. It's why some guys become more physically protective or territorially aware in situations with other males present. This hormonal response intensifies the emotional reaction, beyond what conscious reasoning can easily override. Psychologically, the upset also stems from fear of replacement. Deep down, many men carry an anxiety that they're disposable or interchangeable. Every interaction you have with another guy feels like a potential audition for his replacement. It's irrational, but the fear is visceral and automatic. From a relational standpoint, the intensity often reflects the security of your relationship foundation. In relationships with strong trust and clear communication, these reactions are milder and easier to regulate. In relationships with ambiguity, past betrayals, or inconsistent reassurance, the reactions become extreme and harder to manage. Here's the truth most people avoid. His reaction also reveals his perception of his own value in the dating market. If he believes he's highly desirable and has options, he's generally less reactive to your interactions with other men.
If he believes you're dating up and he's lucky to have you, every other guy feels like a viable threat. The cultural component matters too. Men are socialized to tie their worth to their romantic success. Losing a partner or being replaced carries shame and social cost. So the upset isn't just about losing you. It's about what losing you means for his identity and status among peers. Behaviorally, high-functioning men who struggle with this often intellectualize their feelings. They know logically that you're allowed to have male friends. They know their reaction is disproportionate. But knowing doesn't stop the nervous system response. This creates internal conflict, which often increases frustration and emotional dysregulation. The jealousy also connects to scarcity mindset. If he believes quality partners are rare and hard to find, losing you feels catastrophic. If he believes he could find someone else if needed, the threat perception decreases. It's economics applied to relationships. High perceived replacement cost equals high anxiety. From a psychological development perspective, men who had inconsistent parental attachment often develop heightened vigilance in romantic relationships. If love was unpredictable in childhood, the nervous system learns to constantly scan for signs of withdrawal or abandonment. Your interaction with another guy becomes a potential sign that love is about to be withdrawn again. Here's what makes this complex. Sometimes the upset is justified intuition. If the other guy is actively flirting or you're responding in ways that encourage his interest, your boyfriend's nervous system is picking up on real cues. The challenge is distinguishing between accurate threat detection and anxious overreaction. Neurologically, when a man feels secure, his parasympathetic nervous system stays active. He can observe you talking to other men without his body going into fight or flight. When he feels insecure, his sympathetic nervous system dominates. Every interaction becomes a potential emergency requiring defensive action. The intensity of his reaction also depends on the context. If you're at a party and deeply engaged in conversation with a guy he doesn't know, his reaction will be stronger than if you're briefly chatting with a coworker he's met. Familiarity reduces perceived threat. Unknown males trigger more primitive protective responses. According to attachment research, men with avoidant attachment might not show upset overtly but will withdraw emotionally as a protective mechanism. Men with anxious attachment will vocalize upset or seek reassurance. Men with secure attachment will feel the discomfort but can regulate it and communicate about it calmly. Here's the part that changes everything. The upset isn't about controlling you or limiting your freedom. It's about his nervous system trying to protect something it perceives as valuable and under threat. Understanding this removes the moral judgment and allows you to address the actual issue, which is nervous system regulation and relationship security. The practical reality is this. If he's getting upset frequently, it signals that the relationship foundation needs strengthening. More consistent reassurance, clearer boundaries with others, explicit communication about commitment, and addressing past wounds that are being triggered in the present. From a neurological standpoint, oxytocin increases feelings of trust and bonding. Physical affection, quality time, and verbal affirmation boost oxytocin. When his oxytocin levels are consistently high, his threat perception around other men decreases naturally. The nervous system feels safe, so it doesn't need to be hypervigilant. Behaviorally, guys who've worked through this usually develop specific regulation strategies. They notice the initial upset, identify it as a nervous system response, and consciously choose how to respond rather than reacting automatically. This requires emotional intelligence and practice, but it's absolutely possible. The upset also reveals what he's afraid of losing. If he's only afraid of losing the relationship status or the benefits you provide, the jealousy will feel transactional and controlling. If he's afraid of losing the deep connection and emotional intimacy you share, the jealousy comes from a place of genuine care, even if it's still dysregulated.
Psychologically, the men who handle this best are those who've developed strong self-worth independent of their relationship. They know who they are, what they offer, and why you chose them. Other men become less threatening because their value isn't contingent on being the only option. From a communication standpoint, how you respond matters significantly. If you dismiss his feelings as irrational or ridiculous, you activate more threat response. If you validate that you understand why he might feel that way, while also maintaining your boundaries, you create safety while establishing limits. Here's the deeper truth. Every man experiences some version of this. The difference is how regulated their nervous system is and how secure the relationship feels. High performers in relationships don't eliminate the feeling. They manage the response. They feel the discomfort and choose connection over withdrawal or conflict. The long-term pattern shows up clearly. If the upset decreases over time as trust builds, it was primarily insecurity that needed relationship security to heal. If it increases or stays constant despite promising commitment, it's likely deeper attachment wounds that need individual therapeutic work to address. Neurologically, repeated experiences of you being around other guys and nothing bad happening gradually rewires his threat response. The amygdala learns that this situation doesn't actually result in loss. This is called extinction learning, but it requires consistency and time.
The upset also connects to his relationship history. If past partners cheated or left him for someone else, his nervous system has been conditioned to see other men as legitimate threats. Your current behavior matters less than the historical data his brain is using to predict outcomes. From a biological perspective, proximity matters. If you're physically close to him while interacting with another guy, his nervous system registers less threat. If you're across the room fully engaged with someone else, the threat perception spikes. Physical distance in these moments translates to emotional distance in his nervous system's interpretation. Here's what successful couples do differently. They talk about this explicitly outside of triggering moments. They create agreements about how to handle social situations with opposite-sex friends. They establish reassurance rituals that keep the nervous system regulated. They treat it as a team problem to solve together, not a character flaw to fix. The reaction also depends on how you describe other men. If you frequently praise other guys' qualities, especially ones he feels he lacks, his comparative threat assessment intensifies. If you frame other men neutrally and emphasize what you value about him specifically, his nervous system stays calmer. Psychologically, the guys who eventually overcome this develop what's called differentiated security. They can hold two truths simultaneously. You can find other men interesting or attractive, and you still choose him. That nuance requires nervous system capacity that only comes with regulation practice and relationship safety. From a practical standpoint, if his upset is disrupting the relationship or limiting your normal social interactions, it needs to be addressed directly, not through criticism, but through collaborative problem solving. What does he need to feel more secure? What boundaries feel necessary for both of you? How can you both get your needs met? The neurological research is clear. Secure attachment literally changes brain structure over time. The more consistently you respond to his needs while maintaining healthy boundaries, the more his brain rewires towards security. But this requires patience and understanding that nervous system change happens slowly. Here's the final piece most people miss. His upset is information, not instruction. It tells you what his nervous system is perceiving, not what you must do. You can acknowledge his feelings without changing your behavior if your behavior is appropriate. The goal is regulation and security, not restriction and control. If you found this breakdown valuable and it helped you understand what's really happening beneath the surface of jealousy, do me a favor and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And check out the video on screen right now, where we break down the psychology of attachment styles and how they shape every interaction in your relationship. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.